I'm Adam Camilleri, and welcome to episode 8 of Gaming Against the Grain. This is a Warhammer 40k podcast which tries to make uncompetitive armies work. An overview of today's episode. We'll be going over a listener question. We've got 2 army lists to review. I have the results from Lords of War, which is the tournament I attended in Brisbane 2 weekends ago. I'm going to give you guys a game-by-game rundown of the 5 games I did. Then I'll go a dissection of my list, so unit by unit, how they performed, how they did, giving my prognosis on their future in my army. Thoughts on the future direction of this army, what I learned from that and where I'm going to take it next. And the last one is my tip for competitive play, which is staying informed. So opening up, the listener question for this week is from a gentleman named Chris Lamarkia, and he writes, Adam, how balanced do you feel the game has become? And what still needs to be done to improve it better for the whole gaming experience? So, I guess to put this bluntly, 40k is still an incomplete game. It's not finished yet. And that's mainly due to having, I think, still quite a few armies that need codexes. Further to that, the rapid release schedule, FAQs, and general craziness keeps the game pretty unbalanced at the moment. And the meta is totally in flux rapidly. It's fluctuating from army to army, list to list, and with every codex release, we're seeing a new set of power plays come out. So to actually give it a direct number out of 10 as to how balanced it is, it's actually pretty hard. But to answer your question, 40k is pretty unbalanced at the moment, but GW is committed to balancing it out. So it's not balanced, but there's hope. Now, some of the deeper elements of this come from a lot of fear of the nerf hammer. What GW has shown is that they are committed to balancing the game, but are still learning to what extent, and we are regularly seeing them go too far, I think. The best example of this I have is conscripts. I played Guard at the start of this edition, and I've got first-hand experience of just getting my army just cut in half with the nerf hammer. So after reducing the unit size for conscripts, firstly, that was the first nerf. Then they took away the Commissar's Fearless Bubble, which admittedly was off its tits. Then after reducing unit size and taking away the Commissar Fearless buff, they probably should have stopped there, but then they increased their points from 3 points per model to 4 points per model and killed off an entire flavor of an army. So as soon as they increased them up to the same points as an infantry, so if you guys don't know, a conscript was 3 points per model, and an infantryman for an infantry squad is 4 points per model. And for that one extra 1 point, you got a better ballistic skill pretty much. So for the same cost, what are you really getting now? So conscripts are literally, there's no point in taking unless you're playing Valhallan, and that's really, really a thematic army. Now, I personally know people who fear this and are doing their best to stay one step ahead of the nerfs. A friend of mine just created a Sam Hine army full of Shining Spears, as he believes the next GW FAQ will target Yanari, Reapers, and Wave Serpents. I think he's probably correct. For those who care, and I actually think the Shining Spears are going to go under the radar, even though they're probably the worst thing in that book. They're probably worse than Reapers, worse than Wave Serpents, but they're not the big scary thing. Everyone's like, oh, Reapers just shot me off the board, all this shit, because the Shining Spears will jump around, they'll move around. You won't see them as big a deal as the guy that just sits there, shoots you twice, and you lose. So not to get off topic, but the question about balance of the game relies on GW staying informed and getting a realistic representation of what's going on. I think they're on the right track, however. They are staying in contact with the community and they're openly accepting feedback. Where I think they need to improve is in changing their balancing system. Enough with going from making one unit go from top tier to unplayable. It would be much better for them to make changes in increments and see how the community adjusts and how the game plays. For example, when the next FAQ drops, either later this month or in early April, whenever they end up doing it, they're probably going to address how good Dark Reapers are, like I said, and they are fucking good. And currently a Dark Reaper costs 5 points per model, and then their Reaper Launcher, which is their gun, costs 22 points. So for a Dark Reaper that hits on 3s all the time, and moves and shoots at full ballistic skill and all this stuff, it costs you 27 points. In the Index, a Dark Reaper costs the same 5 points at base, but then you paid 31 points for the Reaper Launcher. So they're 36 points each. Now, so they got reduced by 9 points from Index to Codex. Now, where you compare that to a Space Marine Devastator with a missile launcher, you begin to see how absurd that is. So a Devastator with a missile launcher has a comparable stat line with 1 more toughness and strength, whereas the Dark Reaper gets to move and shoot without penalty and always hits on a 3+, which is 1,000 fucking times better in my opinion. And before you add weapons, you're already paying 8 more points for the Devastator. So Devastator comes in at 13 points, the Dark Reaper comes in at 5. Now, a Dev with a missile launcher is 38 points, 11 points more expensive than the Dark Reaper currently, and 2 points more expensive than the Index version was. I think, now, if you wanted to get a nice middle ground between those two, because if you compare those two right now, there is no comparison. That's 27 points for a Dark Reaper, 38 points for a Devastator with a missile launcher. It's a fucking absurd comparison for what you get. Now, I think the Dark Reaper should return to around about where they were in the Index, somewhere between 32 to 36 points per model plus weapons, but I totally expect them to get returned to 36 points, plus take a nerf, like losing their ability to always hit on 3+. Now, if I was GW and I wanted to keep people happy, I'd be adjusting things incrementally, like I said. For example, put those Reapers up by 6 or 7 points per model and then see how the game settles. Should they still be an issue in another couple of months, hit them again in the same way and see what happens. But I don't like the fact that what's seeming to happen is people's armies are getting destroyed and the collections made redundant in one document. But I truly think they're on the right track and that they're doing the best job they have ever done. So I'm totally behind them. So thanks for the question, Chris. I hope that gave me some insights and some ideas. No, the game is far from balanced, but it's actually getting there, which is nice. All right. Our first list review today is from That Guy. And That Guy writes, "Hey there, matey. Posted up some Templar lists on places like Daka Daka, and most people seem clueless about running a thematic but competitive Templars list. One guy actually posted mentioning a podcast and been listening and loving it so far. So prior lists I dabbled in was chucking in some custodes, but I'm thinking that's a bit of a cop-out, and I'll stick with trying to make a good go with a thematic and competitive Templars list. So here goes. So he's got a battalion detachment, with his HQ being High Marshal Helbrecht, a lieutenant with a Stormbolter and a Power Maul. Then he has 1, 2, 3, 4. He's got 6 troops choices, and 2 of those are what he calls choppy Crusader squads. So that's a 6-man unit with 5 initiates and 1 neophyte. So that's like the scout equivalent. If you know what my previous report on Crusaders, and he's got a Sword Brethren upgrade. So that's the Sergeant upgrade, and he's taken dual Lightning Claws on that one. Then he has another squad with the same 6 dudes in it, but the guy has a Bolt Gun and Power Fist on the Sword Brother instead. Then he has 2 support Crusader squads, he calls them, and the Sword Brother just has a Power Sword and a Bolt Gun. Then he has 2 dudes with Bolt Guns, 1 guy with a Plasma Gun, 1 guy with a Las Cannon, and again he's got that Neophyte with the Bolt Gun, he's got 2 of those. Then he has 2 Scout squads, just stock, 5 mans with Bolters. Then he has a Land Raider Crusader. He's got 2 Razorbacks with twin las cannons. Then he has a Vanguard detachment with Chaplain Grimaldus, the Emperor's Champion. Then in that he has a Company Ancient with the Relic Banner of Emperor Ascendant. Then he has 6 Stern Guard and a Terminator Assault Squad with the Sergeant having dual Lightning Claws and everyone else has Slender Hammer Storm Shield. Then he has a Drop Pod. So the idea is to have both choppy Crusader squads with Helbrecht, Grimaldus, Lieutenant, and the Ancient pack into the Land Raider and to be take them up the field. So we have another zealous little bubble that allows reroll ones to hit, so rerolls alls to hit, +1 strength in combat, and rerolling ones to wound. 6 is doing an extra attack, and on a 3+, if anything dies, they can fight fire again. The Land Raider Crusader is accompanied by Razorbacks packed out with our Shooty Crusader squads. These are generally the anti-tank units, even though the Terminators can do it as well. The Scouts should do a bit of board control, and yeah. The Drop Pod is there to deliver the Stern Guard, and Veterans who should drop in and take out some elites using the +1 to win stratagem for their special ammo. They're quite handy in combat too, if required. Also, they'll be accompanied by the Emperor's Champion, who can solo most characters and monsters rushing into combat. They will also be accompanied by the Terminator Squad, and providing multiple threats, hopefully allow the Crusaders and the Razorbacks to get into position. Thoughts? Much obliged, fella. So, firstly, it's a pretty cool list. I love that it's got lots of bodies. I also love that it's got all 3 of the Templar special characters in it. That's fucking mad. Unfortunately, 2 of them have kind of a cross purpose. When I first did my kind of in-depth analysis for myself on Templars, I noticed that Helbrecht and Grimaldus kind of clash in purpose. So you're paying 120 points for Grimaldus and 170 for Helbrecht, and both of them give rerolls in combat, which is what you want those two squads to do. So you're paying a lot of points for the same buff. Now, in your configuration, you're probably better off with a jump captain with a relic. And the other issue you're going to have, I don't know who your warlord is in this. I'm hoping it's the lieutenant, so you can choose what your warlord is, and you'll be able to take Storm of Fire if you want. Otherwise, you'll be stuck with the shitty Templar's relic, warlord trait with the 6-inch throwing intervention or whatever. But some things of note is 6 troop choices in a battalion is kind of overkill. Crusaders are great, but 4 units of them is a bit too much, as they don't quite do enough of what you want them to do. So, well, the melee ones at least, the shooting ones that you've got are actually quite good. On top of that, unfortunately, the assault termies are kind of bad and overcosted. And furthermore, I really think you need to max out that unit of Sternguard, because otherwise you're really paying 83 points to only deploy 6 guys in it, with plus the Empress Champion. So that pod is like probably almost the same cost as the Sternguard. So you're doubling their cost to only deploy 6 guys for that shooting drop. So I think you need to max that out if you can. And lastly, 2 units of scouts can't quite cover the board enough to block you off from deep strikes in any of the long edge deployment missions. So some changes. Firstly, I haven't dropped any of the special characters. I didn't want to do that. I think it's fucking mad. And if you can play all of them in a list, I think you should. And it's sick. And I didn't want to fuck with that. So what I have done though is I've dropped the Assault Terminators, I've dropped the Company Ancient, and I've dropped the 2 Choppy Crusader squads. Replacing them firstly is an extra unit of scouts. So now you have 3 units of scouts, so you get that better board control. Then I maxed out the unit of Sternguard to a 10-man. Now, if you wanted to, you can drop that back to a 9-man and chuck the Empress Champion in there. So then to replace the 2 elite squads I took out of Vanguard, I put in 2 5-man squads of Vanguard veterans. Each one with 1 guy with a Storm Shield and a Chainsword, 1 guy with 2 Chainswords, and the remaining 2 dudes and the Veteran Sergeant all got your Lightning Claws. So each one of those units have 5 Chainsword attacks and 10 Lightning Claw attacks, with 1 ablative dude to take the first no rend save, and 1 dude with a Storm Shield to take the first 4 rend save, so the first plasma shot save. You put them in the Land Raider Crusader for Strength 5, exploding 6s with rerolls to hit and rerolls to wound on the Lightning Claws. So that makes them pretty scary against just about everything. So you could even put those into a knight, and you'll be hitting on 5s rerolling, hitting on 3s rerolling, 6s are extra attacks if they're whatever, and then they're wounding on 5s rerolling. So you can pay out some dudes with that. That's pretty scary. That's good against everything. The last thing I added in is my best mate, the Thunderfire. It's just a great all-round tool for stopping people alpha striking you, and will sit on a backfield and give great support to your advance up the board. So when you drop all your threatening units and they try and counterpunch you with, like, let's say, I don't know, a big unit of berserkers or something, you chuck that Thunderfire stratagem on them and you just ignore those berserkers. You just walk around them, you go about your business, and you ignore them the entire game while that Thunderfire just pinks at them for you. So yeah, hope that helped that guy. And yeah, I actually really love that you've put all 3 of the special characters in there, and I really hope that works for you because it's fucking sick. The next one is from Ian, and he writes, "Hi Adam, me and my mate are doing a 2K doubles event at Warhammer World in June, so 1,000 points each, and his list is as follows." So this is not his list, this is his partner's list, and he's playing Vostroyan Guard, and he's got a tank commander who has a heavy bolter and 2 multi-melters, and he's just in a battle tank. Next up, he has his 3 heavy supports, which the first one is a Land Raider Exterminator with plasma cannons, and of course, so that's not the Executioner, that's the Exterminator, so that has the 8-shot autocannon. Now, then he has a Lemonross battle tank, and sorry, that Exterminator is only 4 shots. It's not 8 shots. 8 shots if you only move it half and you shoot it twice. Then he has a Lemonross Punisher, which has heavy flamers all around, and of course the Punisher cannon. And then he has a Wyvern as his 3rd choice. Lastly, he has a super heavy auxiliary detachment, and he has taken a Minotaur artillery tank. And his notes are, "And as for me, I have no idea what to take. The scenarios are Eternal War, and I have about 20,000 points of Space Wolves, so you can take anything you come up with. But Wolves are not great at the moment, so I have an Ultramarines 30k or 40k force around 3,000 points. And I've just picked up the Virtus Praetor box, so I can buy more Custodes if that's what you think works best. Thanks for any help, and keep up the great podcast." From Ian in Liverpool, UK. awesome that someone in the UK is listening to my podcast. Thanks, Ian. Thanks very much. That's fucking great. So it's a pretty brutal guard list, and I love it. The Minotaur is an amazing model, and it does work. If you are looking for something to complement this list, then Space Wolves can do it just fine, but Ultramarines would do it better. So I'll say that first, straight off the bat. So your mate here has all the long range and anti-tank and anti-infantry covered. So if you wanted to support him in the best way possible, I'd look into taking bodies. Bodies to hold Eternal War objectives, because those tanks aren't going to do a great job of it and at the end of the game, and bodies to bubble wrap and screen the tanks. If you want to build into the tank concept further, I'd take Ultras, and maybe if you want to be fluffy, take Cronus in a Pred with Tiggy, and use Tiggy to give him -1 to hit and +1 toughness, or a Tech Marine. And then you take some Scouts to screen and some Tac Marines to bubble wrap. If you want to get super hardcore, take Tiggy and a Storm Raven. It's a bit of a dick move, but then you get a -2 to hit Storm Raven and toughness 8 if you want. And then you just go full aggressive with some Vang Vets, deep striking, or some min-max tax squads and Rhinos and Razorbacks to sit objectives. If you wanted to go Space Wolves, I'd look into going full aggressive. Use the outflank stratagem from Chapter Reprove to get something nasty on their flank, so they're too worried about that to go all in on the guard tanks. But once again, I'd be taking some Blood Claws on Fenrisian Wolves for the cheap bubble wrap. Thunder Wolves are okay, but you can't afford to overinvest in them. Maybe just a few Storm Shields and 1 or 2 Thunder Hammers in their Lightning Claws. Yeah, keep them cheap. The one good thing Space Wolves really have going for them is their psychic powers still hold up. So if you wanted to take Najal or another dude that can offer good psychic support. So that's what I would do if I was Space Wolves. I'd take some good psychic support. I'd take 1 or 2 really threatening units, and then I'd just take some bubble wrap. So yeah, I know that was a bit short and sweet, but I didn't quite get a good sense of what you really wanted me to do. Like I said, I don't write lists for people, so I was just hoping to give you some ideas. Now, so like I said, Ultramarines would do a better job of the bubble wrapping, simply because if you charge them, they can fall back and still get some viability out of them. But if you wanted to be more aggressive and push up the board, I'd go with the Space Wolves. So yeah, those are the lists for review today. I hope I was able to help that guy and Ian. And yeah, good luck with your future endeavors. All right, moving on. All right, now it's time to let you all know about my results from Lords of War that happened this last weekend. So I attended Lords of War and I ran a list I went over in my last podcast. It was 5 games over 2 days, 2,000 points. The only real other stipulation I know about, there was no Forge World. Just to quickly go over the list I took, I had a battalion with Helbrecht, Lieutenant, 2 Crusader squads with Plasma, Combi Plasma, Heavy Grav, 2 with just Heavy Bolters, 10 Stone Guard, Land Raider Crusader, a Thunderfire, 2 Drop Pods, a Captain in Termi Armor, and 3 Preds with Autocannons, Heavy Bolters, and a Hunter Killer Missile. I knew this wasn't a great list going in, but I knew I had some good tools that I liked the idea of, and I wanted to get a feel for a few different plays and styles. I set my goal at breaking even at 2 wins, 2 losses, and a draw, or better, but I did not quite do that well. I actually went 1-4, so I won 1 game and lost 4, which is my worst tournament result in 4 years of competitive gaming, guys. Just to let you know, that is the worst I've ever done at a tournament. So, pretty fucked. I knew it was going to be hard, and it is. I want to congratulate Deneath, whose list I reviewed a few weeks ago. He had the Salamanders Brigade with the Custodes Shield Captains. He actually won the event, and his list was really good at playing the missions, and it showed. Like he was able to play those really well and just outscore people. Did a really good job. So yeah, I did really bad at this event, guys, and I'm going to tell you all about it up next, which is the next section, which is called a recap of my games. So game 1, I played against Chaos. He had a Baden, a Slanesh DP, 3 units of Brimstones, 2 units of Obliterators, and 2 full Chaos Shooting Knights. So both had a Gatling, a Rapid Fire Battle Cannon, and a Storm Spear Rocket Pod. He got the +1 naturally, and went first. I deployed full defensive, knowing that both the Knights and the Oblits could wreck just about everything I have. He brought down everything and took out 2 Predators first turn and smoked a few other units here and there. Without the Preds, I discovered I had lost all ability to kill a Knight. So I focused all my efforts on capturing as many objectives as I could. Already deciding that I needed to get points early and try and hold on to late game. I killed a bunch of his Brimstones and took most of the board pretty quickly, and invested a lot into killing the Oblits. I dropped the Crusaders with the special weapons and got all the rerolls on them. I did a fair job and took one down to 2 dudes left and wiped the other one. He had a bit of a whiffer of his next turn and didn't do much. He exposed his DP by failing an 8-inch charge. And I believe I used the Black Templar stratagem to deny his warp time. I scored a bunch more points and managed to take out the Blitz, the DP, and all the Brimstones. He only had Abby and his 2 knights left. Then he had a fucking savage turn. He kills the Land Raider outright with 1 knight, doing 11 wounds with the Stormspear rocket pod. That was fucking brutal. He then cleans up the Stern Guard and remaining Crusaders. All I have left is 1 Pred, a Thunderfire, and some characters. I use everything I have left to take out Abby, sacrificing my Terminator Captain to get the last 2 wounds off. He moves around and takes out a few characters, but that's about it. And then I hid everything out of line of sight because I had a good points lead by this point. He moves up onto the objectives and scores some stuff. And then I made a mad dash and advance out onto 3 of the Eternal War objectives. And if the game ended on turn 5, I would have won by 4 points. And if it goes on, I was fucked. But if it went on, I was fucked anyway. And it went on. So it was a rough matchup. I ended up losing by 4 points. I didn't really expect double knights as a thing. It hasn't been a thing in my meta for like 6 months. And facing this army exposed a lot of weaknesses in my list. Game 2 versus Imperial Soup. He had a pretty standard guard battalion with a couple of basilisks and the I get way more CP than you setup, which is just a company commander with the relic Quarrel's a Killer and the Grand Strategist Warlord trait. So he gets, when I use a CP, he gets it back on a 5+. When he uses a CP, he gets it back on a 5+. And all that for like 30 points. It's crazy. Then he has Celestine with both Gemini, 2 Vindicare Assassins, 1 Calidus Assassin, 2 Eversor Assassins, and I think he had 5, maybe even 6 Calexis Assassins. So a really hard list to tackle. It wasn't conventional at all, and it really took a shitload of thinking to get around. I was lucky. The mission favoured me heavily because it was kill points. In that respect, I only had 15 in my list, where he had 27. So I had plenty of an advantage there, and I leveraged that a lot. I must admit this army rattled me a lot. It took me about 3 turns to get really focused on what was actually important in that mission, because I just was getting so confused and sidetracked with just how many Calexis and shit he had all over the place. But by the end, I was able to play really conservative and just rack up as many kill points as I could. I picked off all his easy ones, his infantry squad, the basilisks, most of the assassins, and I ended up getting a max win. Helbrecht was an absolute boss in this game. In this one, he gave me the rerolls I needed to kill the Calexis assassins. So when I was tag teaming him with the Land Raider to kill Calexis, and the Land Raider would easily smoke 1, sometimes 2 units a turn. Like it would kill 1 Calexis with the assault cannon and 1 hurricane bolter, and then put another hurricane into like an infantry squad. And it was just being great in this game. And on top of that, Helbrecht killed Celestine twice by himself. So the first time he double moved his Celestine in and charged a predator, locked up 2 predators. I intervened with Helbrecht and killed her, and then he got back up and did the same thing, and then I put Helbrecht back in and killed her again. It was fucking sick. Alright, so I got a max win out of that one, and it ended up being a really cool game. But because he had so many kill points, it favoured me heavily. Alright, game 3. He had triple knights and 3 shield captains on Dawn Eagle jet bikes. So he had 1 full shooting knight and 2 half shooting knights. And then he had 3 Dawn Eagle jet bike captains. And 2 of those had the relics to give them 3 up invulnerable saves. So pretty much in this game, I needed first turn. Naturally, he finished deploying first and got the +1 as he only had 6 drops. And knowing if I went second, I was pretty much fucked. I deployed really aggressively so I could see multiple knights with my Preds. We roll for who goes first. He gets a 3, and I'm like, oh baby, and I get a 5, and I was like, fuck, yay, we're gonna have a game. And then he seized. He took out 2 of my Preds and all of my chaff in turn 1. I think I played pretty well in this game though. I baited out his 4+ invulnerable stratagem, you know, the strategy, pay 1 CP and get +1 invulnerable save on one of your knights. So I made it look like I was going to invest in 1 knight with all of my shooting, one of his half shooting knights, and then he put the 4+ invulnerable on him. And then I switched and put all my predators and, my 1 remaining predator and all of my crusaders and stern guard into his 4 shooting knight. And I was pretty unlucky, and he got left with about 10 wounds. and then he cleaned me up pretty well. I ended up getting wiped turn 5, and it was pretty fucked. So, yeah, my army was not equipped to deal with multiple knights. I learned that from game 1, and now I learned it again from game 3. So, yeah, I did not actually expect to see multiple knights. They have not been in existence in my meta. I have not played against multiple knights since the first couple of months of this edition. So, yeah, I did not see them coming. And so that's a total of 5 knights I've faced in this event so far. And, yeah, so I'm right at the bottom tables now. So I'm 1 and 2 with 2 big losses. So hopefully that means I'll have some good, easy matchups, yeah, and I'll just get to play some nice thematic armies. Yeah, sure, Adam, sure. Game 4, the same fucking list I played game 1. 2 full Daka shooting knights, a bunch of brimstones, a bunch of obliterators, and a baton. Fuck my life. So to make this a little bit of more of an issue, was the mission was one of the ones from chapter approved, where you divide your army into 3 parts, and then you randomly deploy one of those with the rest of your army coming on a 3+. So I tried to be clever about this, thinking I needed to be, because already played pretty much this exact same army, and I was in the game. It was a really, really, really tight game, and swinging back and forth until turn 5. And so I was thinking, if I just get a few more things to go my way at the start of the game, I'll recoup the difference in those points that I lost in that big turn that he had against me in game 1, and I'll be able to win this game. So I null deployed and gave him no shooting options turn 1, because I got the choice to who goes first, and I made him go first, so he wasted his first turn. And when he rolled for his units, he brought everything on except his obliterators, because if they're in deep strike, you get to pick. So he chose to leave them off. So he got everything on his entire army came on. And then in my turn, I rolled kind of average, and I even needed to use a CP to get some of my shit on. But I rolled on, and I did sweet fuck all to him. And then he was pretty much able to pick me off piecemeal as I arrived. So my army, I only got about half, maybe a little bit over half of my units on the start of turn 1 on the 3+. And then I came on, didn't do enough because not all my army was on the board. And then he shot and just killed everything I had. And then my rest of my shit just rocked up next turn and got fucking killed as well. It was a shame because, like I said, I played that same list game 1, and it was a really closely fought game, really tactical, really in depth. It was a lot of interplay, and I played a pretty much fairly identical army, and it was a complete fucking slaughter simply due to the mission, and it left a pretty bad taste in my mouth. Yeah, to get screwed that badly on the mission, simply because shit, he rolled better 3+s than I did. It fucking pissed me off, to be honest. But anyway, moving on. So now I'm 1 and 3, and I'm pretty screwed. There's not much honor to be had out of this, not much pride to be had. But I still have my chin up. I'm still doing okay. I'm still enjoying myself, even though I was a little pissed off about that last game. So game 5, I played against Nids, and this was piloted by the Australian ETC team captain Simon Gonkovic. And he's a really good player, guys. I have no idea why I was playing this guy, because he came second, I think, and he played the guy who I think I came 5th last. And yeah, I played the guy who came second in the last game. It didn't make sense to me at all. But anyway, he time lapses all his games, this guy, and he puts them up on YouTube. So I check it out. His YouTube channel is called Tabletop Tourneys, all one word. And yeah, check him out. He time lapses all his games, and he does commentary over them. It's pretty good. He had a Swarm Lord, a max unit of Gene Stealers, a big unit of Devil Gaunts, a big unit of Warriors in the tunnels with Raveners from Jormungandr. Then he had a Tyrannofex, a Flyer, and a bunch of Morlocks. So straight away, I was a bit on the back foot here. The mission was the one where you get 3 Maelstrom cards per turn and have to score them all in the same turn or else they get replaced. This pretty much means that you need to be dynamic and get around the board, and my opponent had an extremely strong board control list. With that in mind, I was pretty much forced to deploy defensively, and I got the choice to who went first, and I gave my opponent turn 1. And he did the right thing and remained static and pretty much did the same thing that the guy did the other turn. He just had a wasted first turn. I only made one move in my turn 1, which was to deep strike my Terminator captain onto an objective because that objective was worth 3 points to me. And I was really sure that I needed to get some points early in the game because I knew he was going to have a shitload more board control than me later in the game. But this is what enabled Simon to pop a really cool play, and something I'd never seen before. So he popped his Gene Stealers out of a node, one of their Gene Stealer nodes, whatever they are, and then move and advance them with a Swarm Lord and Kraken. So he used the Kraken stratagem to get double on his advance, and he moved him 20 inches. And then he surrounded my Terminator Captain, charged him, got a little bit of extra movement, and then after he killed him, he pulled this play called Overrun, which is a 1 CP stratagem that lets them move again instead of consolidating. And because he's Kraken, he keeps the double move and he keeps the advance. So he moved another 20 inches. So he ended up moving 48 fucking inches with those Gene Stealers turn 2 and being all over my lines. On top of that, he deployed all his reserves, taking the board away from me completely and putting his 2 Morlocks into my back lines, making me have to kill them lest they charge and tie up everything. So I rolled pretty badly, and I did manage to kill all these Gene Stealers, leaving him with about 5 left out of the max unit. I shot them with, I think, all the Crusaders I had left, the Land Raider Crusader, Thunderfire, a bunch of other stuff, and I left with about 5 left. I think with all the rerolls to hit and rerolls to win stuff, I probably should have killed him. But he had Catalyst on him as well, so that saved a few. I did shoot and kill both Morlocks, so I was able to pop the kill shot stratagem. I shot and killed both Morlocks pretty easily, and then took his flyer and down to a few wins left. So in this game, kill shot really did work. It did really work. I didn't mention it before either. First turn, I was able to move 2 of my Preds so that they could see his Tyrannofex, because he was hiding his Tyrannofex out of line of sight. I'd moved to move 2 of them to see him, and with just the 2 of them with kill shot, I was able to take his Tyrannofex down to about 2 wins left. I even think I got a little bit unlucky. He rolled quite a few 5-up and 6-up saves for the 100 killer missiles. So I actually think I could have killed him, so that was pretty cool. So then in his turn, he used these Gene Stealers to charge and tie up 2 of my Predators. And then he slingshots Swarm Lord into my Land Raider and Helbrecht. Now, I may have made a mistake here slightly. I had 2 command points left at this point, and I used one of them for the 4+ Black Templars stratagem to deny psychic power to stop the Swarm Lord's onslaught power, which would have stopped him from charging, because he moved in advanced and then used his Hive Mind ability to move in advance again to get him within charge range. Now, had I been able to stop his onslaught roll, he could not have charged me because he advanced. So I used the stratagem and I failed the 4+. And I had 2 left, and I felt really hamstrung. I still had my Stern Guard to come down, and I still had all 3 Preds on the board. So I let it go, rather than re-rolling the 4+, because my rationale was both the kill shot stratagem and the Stern Guard stratagem are guaranteed damage increases. And the 4+ re-roll is still just another 50-50 roll. So I stuck with what I thought was the sure thing, but I still don't know what the better play was, because had I stopped that, I would have been able to stop him from firstly tying up that Land Raider Crusader, and he was able to charge and kill Helbrecht with that move as well. So in my turn, I dropped the Stern Guard and then used them plus the Preds to waste the Swarm Lord, but it's kind of too late now. So Simon has all the board control, and he's just been racking up the points on me. His big units of Warriors, Devil Gaunt and Raveners were all untouched, mostly because I didn't get to shoot that Land Raider Crusader, and they were able to charge my whole back line. So because I had to deploy on my back line with my Predators and my Land Raider Crusader, he was able to move those Raveners, move those Warriors, move those Devil Gaunts up, and he was just able to charge everything in my back lines, and bada bing, bada boom, it was over. So I felt like I played that game well. I felt like I was on the back foot already. He has a really good list, and Simon is a fantastic player. He's the ETC captain for a reason, and he played a really solid tactical game. In this one, I felt like I had the tools, but the mission favored him heavily. And had it been kill points, had it been Eternal War, it would have been a lot closer, but I still think I would have lost. I still think his list was far, far better than mine. The other thing I realized was the Jormungandr trait was not just the tunneling stratagem. They get the counting is in cover if they don't advance or charge. So those Morlocks having a 2+ save was pretty significant. And plus with that flyer and having essentially a 2+ armor save as well was actually pretty significant when I started shooting him with Preds. Only having the -1 AP on the heavy bolters and the Predator autocannons meant that he was getting 3+ against those. So yeah, he bounced off quite a few there. So yeah, that's my recap of all my games, guys. It was not a glorious adventure for the Black Templars. It was not a anything that I'm supremely like proud of. But I don't feel like I played badly. I feel like I got some really bad list matchups. Like it's a whole I played so many knights that I did not see that shit coming, guys. Did not honestly think I'd be seeing like mass knights anywhere again. At least not until their codex comes out. But there you go. That was the meta up there. That was what I faced, and that's how I went. So moving on to my next topic, which is a dissection of my list. And the first thing I'll preface this, so I already said it just before, but I played 3 knight armies in 5 games, and I went second against all 3 of those knight armies. So I did not get to use kill shot on any of them. And so just to give you guys an outline, my usual rating system is going to stick for this. So this will each unit will be rated by either a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or a Zangief. And if you don't know what the Zangief is, that's my unsure. So that's my sideways thumb. So I'll start with my HQs. Helbrecht. Still a fucking boss. His rerolls are significant in boosting everything that needs boosting. He is a combat boss, and he is a very reliable swingman when I'm in a bad spot. He's fairly expensive though, at 170 points, and I've been looking into it. I can save about 60 points if I take him out and replace him with a well-equipped captain. And I believe from now on, to get the most out of him, I need to add in something that will get mileage out of his +1 strength buff, because that's one of the things I'm paying for with him. You're not just paying for his 4 rerolls, you're paying for his +1 strength in the 6-inch aura. But he's still, on the whole, is very solid, and I give him a thumbs up. Next up is my lieutenant, who was my warlord, and he had the Storm of Fire warlord trait and just a power sword and a storm bolter. Really, really handy. He didn't really get to shine too much in this event, as giving hurricane bolters and assault cannons an extra Ren versus knights really doesn't fucking make any difference, and it's nothing to write home about. But for his points and utility, and also packing a 9-inch aura due to the Black Templar's relic, I think he was fucking great, and I'll give him a thumbs up. The next up is the Terminator captain with the Thunderhammer Storm Shield, and this is a hard one. I like him, I like the unit, and I love the model I've got for him, but I think I can do just as well or better with a jump pack captain. It would be cheaper, faster, and the model will be just as sick. So I think this guy has to be a thumbs down at this point. I just think I can do just as good or better with a cheaper model. Okay, onto troops. I had 2 5-man Crusader units with a heavy bolter each. These guys were pretty trash. I put them in there because I wanted access to the Hellfire stratagem and I needed some kind of screen and bubble wrap. I knew they were very, very subpar for the role, but it's all I had at the time, and yeah, thumbs down. Next up, I have the 2 5-man Crusader squads, each one having a plasma gun, combi plasma, and a heavy grav. Now this one is interesting. I think I still like the concept of this unit, but it costs way too many points for what it does. In every game I played, they dropped down in their drop pod and did some significant damage, but most often they failed to finish off something outright. The prime example of that is the Flyrant in that last game. I think I came down and only did about 4 or 5 wounds to it. And that was using far more points to do that than that Flyrant is worth in points. So on the whole, I'm starting to think the heavy grav is actually really good, but probably about 10 points too expensive. And it's not worth its points at all. In the future, I think I'll swap them out for just a heavy bolters. So I'll be dropping those 2 5-man Crusader squads. I'll be taking the heavy bolters out of those unit, and I'll be chucking them in with these guys. And I'll be going after less important stuff. Maybe just backline harassment and clearing, rather than going after actual power units with these guys. Because it's obvious that they don't have what's needed to do that. I'll probably be dropping them down and trying to kill stuff like Biovores or Devastators and things like that. Things people got in their backlines just to try and keep things busy and time up. Okay, onto elites. Sternguard, still pretty amazing. I really didn't get good mileage out of them in this event. Facing full knight armies is not their forte. They're fucking shit at it, actually. But in the 2 games without the knights, they paid out pretty significantly. In game 5, they came down and took out the Swarm Lord almost unsupported. Just with the stratagem, they pretty much almost killed him. And in game 2, they cleared a whole back flank of my opponent's army and then sat in combat with the Colexis for 2 turns while scoring me objectives. In game 2, they also took out my opponent's Demon Prince and a unit of Brimstones before they got squished by a big feat of a knight. But on the whole, thumbs up. They're still a little bit expensive simply because that drop pod turns them from something that's actually really reasonable for their cost to being pretty expensive for what they do. But they offer something that my list needs, so I'm going to keep them. And thumbs up. Heavy support. Land Raider Crusader actually only died twice in this entire event. It always did work, except versus the triple knights and triple shield captain list, where he had no fucking role to play whatsoever. But apart from that, he usually took care of a unit a turn, if not two. And like I said before, actually did really, really well against the Collectus Assassins in game 2. Yeah, as soon as I gave him Hellbreak's rerolls, reliably killed one, and sometimes 2 units a turn. I did not... The other thing I'm thinking about, I didn't get any mileage out of his transport ability. The only time in the entire event that I used it was when I was trying to save kill points in that game 2, and I was just chucking single model units in there and characters and stuff to stop the Vindicares from sniping them. But on the whole, I still actually really like this guy. This guy is actually starting to impress me a bit more, and I'll give him a thumbs up for now. The Thunderfire, fucking mad. Once again, didn't get much mileage out of it because it's actually shit against knights, because this stratagem doesn't work on Titanic units, and it didn't take any effect whatsoever, which is a big downside. But the dude still started on an objective every game that mattered, and still scored me points, and it's still fantastic for finishing off units. So thumbs up. Now, onto the big one. Predators. So during this event, I was pretty much semi-raging about how shit these guys were, because they did sweet fuck all for me in all but one game. And that being the last one, where they killed 2 Morlocks, a shitload of Gene Stealers, most of a Flyer and a Tyrannofex. Now at the end of the event, I was convinced I would never run these guys again, thinking they were a complete waste of time and so easy to nullify. One huge downside to the army was a complete reliance on them for anti-tank, and in those games versus knights, as soon as one of them went down, my ability to kill the knights was lost too, which was a massive weakness. Now after getting some distance from the event and having some perspective, my mind has changed, and in all honesty, I couldn't think of a worse lineup of lists and armies to showcase all the downsides of them whilst not showing any of the upsides. The biggest thing to note in this is that I went second in every single game, which makes them pretty fucking bad straight off the bat. Secondly, I know I've gone over this a few times, but I faced 3 knight lists. At best, versus multi-light knights with this army, I go first, and then the Preds kill 1 knight. And maybe take some wounds off another one. And then whatever knights left shoot back, and they take away my ability to do that again. And it's the same result. All I've done is I've killed 1 knight instead of not killing any. This didn't expose issues with the Preds, as I actually don't think that's an issue, because the Preds have 450 points, and killing 1 full shooting knight recoups their points, and then some. And so that's a good trade. I will trade that. I'll be happy to. What it exposed is the lack of my army to deal with more than 1 significant anti-tank threat per turn. So with that in mind, I think the jury is still out on the Preds, and I have to give them at least 1 more go. So I'm giving these guys a Zangief. I honestly had possibly the worst example of what these guys can do, whereas I'm hoping to put these guys up against something like a more MSU mech army like Guard or Razorback Spam or something like that. Then I can get a good perspective on what they do, because versus Knights, they're just fucking trash. But like I said, I'd be more than happy to trade those 3 Preds for 1 full shooting knight. That's a great trade. I'll take it every day of the week. So on that basis, yeah, Zangief for him. And the last one is the drop pods. Still decent. 2 adds heaps of board control to an otherwise pretty static army, but the cost does add up. And I've got to keep in mind that cost, because I paid 166 points in this army to deliver those 3 squads. That was the Stern Guard and the 2 Crusaders with the special weapons. Now, when I look at this, the price of those 3 squads, plus that, I'm inflating their cost of that by about 35% to deploy them like that. I'm still trying to weigh out whether that's worth it. But overall, I'm still going to give these guys a thumbs up for now, because I think they offer something that the army needs, just like the Stern Guard. So overall, the army was as good as I thought it was going to be, but I just really wasn't prepared for the meta there. It was so different to mine that I was unequipped to cope with it, and there's really no other way of saying it. Just was not equipped, didn't have the tools. Alright, moving on. This is the future direction of the army. So this kind of list that I played is not what I want to be playing. This made it clear to me that at this event, it's far too static for what I enjoy. Only having 3 Preds for significant anti-tank means I need to invest in protecting them, which means I need to play defensively pretty much like 80% of the time, and I don't like that. I want an army that can play 50-50. Even though I'm committed to giving the Preds another go, I want my next list to have more aggressive elements in it, to alleviate the pressure from my backfield and engage my opponent where I want them to, rather than have my deployment dictate all of it. which is what I've had to do. With that in mind, I think the next progression for this army is to add in some counterpunch units, and I'll let you guys muse on what that might be. So I'll leave it that for there today. On to our last topic, which is staying informed. So if you're paying attention to 40k at the moment, you will notice that there is heaps going on all the fucking time. New codexes, FAQs, erratas, big events, and the lists that are winning them and shit. Now, a big way I found to not only getting to the top tables but staying there is to keep yourself informed. And what does that mean? That means listening and reading and doing lots of it. That means every time a new codex comes out, you get yourself abreast of what it does, what the big plays are, what you can expect if you ever play against it. Now, every time an FAQ drops or errata, you read that sucker, you talk it over with some mates, or you go over it in great detail. Any big event in the world, you keep tabs on what's doing well, what army list knocked off that army you always lose to, what will be the big takeaways from the winning lists, losing lists. And now, how do you do this? Firstly, the best way currently to keep up with the new releases is through Weimer community page. It's pretty simple. And some of the bigger Facebook groups for the 40k groups. The community page regularly announces what's coming up during the big events and will announce upcoming codexes and changes to the game. The Facebook pages are great for catching things you might have missed. Now, like any good forum or page that's full of nerds, they can be pretty toxic at times. So if you're like me, I just kind of ninja around there, post a comment like here or there, never really getting involved with many good discussions or whatever, because I don't want to get stuck in the mire of it. I don't want to get stuck knee deep in the nerd chat and not be able to get out. And, if that's not for you, just check it out, take it for what it is. It's just good to be informed and stay in contact with the community. The next way is to check out some of the many 40k media channels out there, most of which you'll find on YouTube. Some of the ones I tune in regularly to are Tabletop Tactics, which makes some of the killer content and always do good codex reviews. Another one is Winter's SEO. Now, Winters is not a super competitive gamer and does not really aspire to be, he doesn't really give a fuck. But he's always the first dude to get a codex review out on a new book. And he's a long-time gamer, so he has some good insights. Lastly, I'd be tuning into Frontline Gaming's channel. They have the direct line to G-Dub at the moment, and whilst they are hamstrung from revealing much, they are abreast of everything in the pipeline, and will usually give some good ideas of what to expect from a new army or an FAQ. The last one I'll touch on today is podcasts. Get a few regular ones run by people you respect and enjoy listening to. Ones that keep a regular schedule and give reliable content. Pretty much every week I'll go through my podcast rotations. I'll listen to Chapter Tactics, I'll listen to Allies of Convenience, Long War and Preferred Enemies a lot of the time as well. And I listen to all those for different reasons. Like Chapter Tactics is really clinical, tries to be really tactical, and with not really much flavor or thematic talk in there. Allies of Convenience literally just kind of recaps big tournaments and mostly the European scene. So that's how I try and keep in touch with what's going on over there. The Long War is kind of a bit funnier. It's not for everybody. You got to pretty much like their colloquialisms and the way they talk to enjoy it at all. But if you're up for that, they're a lot of fun, those dudes. And Preferred Enemies is not a competitive podcast at all, but they go over each codex that comes out pretty much with a fine-tooth comb, and they'll do like a 3-hour podcast on a book, and so you'll get pretty much verbatim everything that's in there, and you'll get some opinions on them, which is good. It might not be from a super tactical, super competitive point of view, but it's content nonetheless, and it's stuff to get into your brain, and it's worth it. These all add up, so all these medias that I consume and these things that I stay in touch with enable me to keep up with what's going on in the game and maintain my perspective on what to expect from week to week, that is in a game that is evolving so quickly. And like I stated in previous podcasts, I do not expect 40k to settle until around the end of the year when the next chapter approved comes out. Until then, we'll be up to our necks in new releases coming at us from all sides, and it can get totally overwhelming at times. So next time you're painting or driving or just shooting the shit, chuck on some 40k content and just keep yourself up to date. Also, Hive City Hobby is fucking mad, and you should all like and subscribe and give us all your money. Nah, it's alright, we don't want your money. We just want you guys to watch and enjoy what we do. Alright, that's pretty much it for today. Closing thoughts. So I knew things were going to get rough trying to make this Black Templars army work, and I may have been a little bit naive as to how hard it was going to be, but fuck if my eyes aren't open now. but I'm not taking a single back step. I'm moving onwards and upwards with the new army ideas and new concepts. And to be honest, I'm starting at the bottom, guys. It's all uphill from here. I can only get better. I hope I was able to help those list guys and the questions. And if you would like a question answered by me or a list reviewed, please send them through to gamingagainstthegrain1, the number 1, at gmail.com. And if you, like I said, always say, if you are looking for a list reviewed, please attach a paragraph with what you want the list to do and what you want me to look at. Lastly, if you have aspirations of being at the top tables, you have to stay informed. There is so much going on in the game at the moment that to truly compete, you need to know what you're up against. So yeah, that's all for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for everything, and see you next time. Cheers.